Hi, welcome back to Game Geeks. I'm your host, Kurt Weigel. Dreaming Cities is up today. Now, Dreaming Cities is the product of the recently defunct Guardians of Order, and it runs off of their Tri-Stat system, which they say is a rules-light game, and in terms of like actual rolling the dice, figuring if you succeed or not, it's really not that bad. Making the characters, though, can be just befuddling if you don't know what you're doing. This is a game that really serves well with a lot of examples, and the game master, who's probably going to be teaching this to his players, working through it a lot in advance to explain it because there's a lot of options. It's one of these do-anything sorts of engines. It originated in Big Eyes, Small Mouth. It really does almost anything you want it to do, but as a result, there's a certain level of complexity there that you have to work through. It has what I call a steep but short learning curve. So, along these lines, what is Dreaming Cities? It is, an urban fantasy role-playing game. What's urban fantasy, you ask? Well, it's the sort of game, it's the sort of setting where it's the real world, but magic works. Monsters are there. The things that go bump in the night are really out there. Easy to blend it with horror. It's also easy to blend it with lighthearted fantasy. This is interesting because, like a lot of Guardians of Order products, it really gives you a nice essay at the beginning on the history of the genre, the books that give rise to it, the films, all the stuff that you might want to consider going out there and reading before you really dive into this sort of game. If you like Buffy, if you like World of Darkness, if you like Call of Cthulhu, there's a good chance this is the sort of game for you. The Tri-Stat lets you build almost anything you want from a pool of points. As it is a point-based game, if you know what you're doing, it's not that hard to break this game. It's a very gamist sort of build, in that if you really wanted to, you could build the uber character. After that, it gives you a nice essay on urban fantasy-style magic, which usually isn't as obvious, or as potent as magic in a straight-up fantasy game is. It's a bit more subtle. It then gives you 3 worlds to choose from that you could use to sort of use as a background or even use their world. You have the Nightmare Chronicles, where demons are starting to bleed over into our world and certain people are better at fighting them than others. You have the world at Twilight, which is sort of the world tree is being cut down and the 2 worlds are blending together. And then finally, you have a rather interesting change. It's called the Little People. What it is it's sort of a pastiche of a lot of the World of Darkness games where you have different cults that work together, different groups within your organization, but you're little people. You're like little small people, kind of like the cartoon, the Littles or the Smurfs, that have to exist in a bigger world. So you have to watch out for the cat and the lawnmower and the vacuum, in addition to dealing with the politics of your own people. I think it's interesting. Like I said, the learning curve is there and it's not insignificant, but if you already know Tri-Stat from Big Eyes, Small Mouth, or some of their other games, it's really easy to get into. So if you're looking for a generic urban fantasy game that you don't have to mess with much to blend in with your favorite property, such as Dresden Files, such as your own version of the World of Darkness, this is a pretty good one to get into. I recommend it if you can get it. Guardians of Order, like I said, is defunct, but you can usually find copies of this on bidding sites like eBay, fairly well priced. That's where I got mine. So if you have any questions, comments, things you'd like to see us review, please feel free to email us at knweigel@yahoo.com. For Game Geeks, I'm your host, Kurt Weigel. Good day and good gaming.